Let's talk living in DC versus New York City. I lived in DC for about 2 years, and I've been living in New York City for now about 2 years as well. So I thought that this was the perfect time to start looking at some of the advantages and disadvantages of living in both cities. And I'm gonna best do that by doing a comparison between them for each different category. 1, transportation. This was one of the biggest things for me, so I wanted to speak about that first. In DC, you're most likely going to be driving to the places you want to go to. With that being said, there's metro access, but you have to be living a little close to it. If you're lucky enough for your work and your home is nearby a metro, you can use that. It's a very clean, very fresh, very new metro. Otherwise, if you live a little bit outside of DC, more in Maryland or Virginia area, then you're going to want to have a car to get from a place to place. Everybody I knew in DC had a car, without an exception. Coming to New York City for transportation, you are mainly going to rely on metro and walking. Good thing is, everywhere is very walkable in New York City. Even if it's an hour away, unlike being in another city like DC, you're never gonna cross a highway. Add to that New York City is very flat, you got a very walkable city. Your other mean of transportation is metro. And honestly, it took me so long to get used to the metro. And here's why. Metro is super convenient. You can get drunk, take the metro home. You can take it and you know exactly when you'll be somewhere. In DC, there'll be a lot of traffic. There will be a lot of delays and people do drive crazy. And here, with metro, you basically take all that stress out of your life. But coming to the part that I struggle the most, metros are crowded, dirty, and if you're someone who's a little bit more hypersensitive to their surroundings, it creates a lot of anxiety. And that is my case, where I feel very overstimulated anytime I'm taking the metro. There's a lot of things that are going on, a lot of smells, a lot of people. If you're not used to that sort of thing, like the first initial couple months, maybe even longer, is going to be difficult for you to get adjusted to that. With that being said, you will get adjusted to it. I did too, but it's always going to be an experience that can create stress. And talking about stress, one of the biggest relievers of stress, one of the biggest ways that we feel good and connected is through a community and friends. So next up, I'm gonna talk about friendships and community, DC versus New York City. I felt a lot lonelier in DC than I did in New York City. And I came across 3 distinct reasons for that. One being, New York City is much bigger. And because the pool is so much bigger, there's going to be more people that you know from different walks of life. And with that, you can definitely find a group of friends that fits you and do things that you want to do much easier. Secondly, New York City is a younger city, meaning there's going to be a lot more young people, and a lot of people who move to New York City are actually wanting this complicated, a little bit crazy, fast-paced life. So what I noticed was that everybody I meet in New York City were a lot more open to new experiences, getting together, making new friends, visiting new places. It was because that's why they had moved to New York City to begin with. And I understand I'm doing a lot of overgeneralizations. Of course, there's millions of people who won't fit into these categories. But I want to talk about my experience so that if you're someone who's planning to move to one or the other, you kind of understand some of the differences and make the best decision for yourself. The third point is actually very related to both these points. In New York City, people are so used to doing things and traveling an hour with metro to go somewhere where it's not a big deal. But when you're in DC, if you live on the Virginia side, just going to the Maryland side could take an hour drive. And even though that's the same amount of transportation, it feels like a lot more of a chore to go see someone who lives a little bit farther away from you. So what I came across when I was living in DC is that I did have some good friends, but I kept struggling to meet up with them because I would get lazy. My work was close, so I wasn't driving too far. Because of that, driving like 30 minutes away felt like such a big chore. And even though my friends lived 30 minutes away, I still didn't get to see them as much. While in New York City, some of my closest friends live almost an hour and a half away, but I still get to see them because I feel like people are a lot more active and you just get to see people a lot more. The third thing I'm gonna talk about, their ease of living. It's kind of funny, I have a point of this because when I was living in DC, if anyone told me that ease of living is so important, I would be like, what is ease of living? But when you move to New York City, you understand how you have certain things so much easier living in a suburban area compared to New York City. So a good example is grocery shopping. If you live in New York City, more than likely, you're gonna have to walk and do grocery shopping and carry those bags. Either take an Uber or take the metro. Whatever it is, it's not going to be an easy task. I'll tell you what we do. My husband and I, once a week, go to Trader Joe's. Closest Trader Joe's is 20 blocks down. In order to get there, we most of the time walk, and after we buy everything, we come back with an Uber. We do have grocery stores that are closer, or I want to say more like bodegas, where you could still get some of the necessities, but they are so much more expensive. So if you want to buy like vegetables and some things that are more specific things that you need around the house, you're gonna have to go to one of those stores. Another thing that we all do and we never really think about is laundry. In New York, most buildings don't have laundry service. And if the building has it, your apartment doesn't. And if your apartment does, you're lucky. That's all I'll say. Our apartment building here does actually have laundry, but it has been out of use for the last 3 months. Those two main things might not be a big deal when you're living in DC. It's just a part of life. It's just a chore. But when you start living in New York City, you kind of understand the value of having some of these things at ease. Driving to your grocery store and just packing your car with everything. And if you need something, just saying, oh, it's just a 5-minute drive away. I'll just get in my car. I don't even have to change. So when you're considering ease of living, DC definitely gives you a lot more niceties you will not be getting in New York City more than likely. Last thing I'm gonna talk about is mental health. The reason I cannot tell you which city will be better for you is because everyone's mental health is based on different things. I'll just tell you my experience of what made me happy and what made me stressed out living in these two spaces. When I lived in DC, I had a comfortable life. I was able to save up more, I had more free time because chores took me less time, and I was able to have less anxiety about things because I did not have to see a lot of people, I did not have to take metro. When I needed to get things done but I wasn't in the mood to be around people or be in a very crowded space, I was able to give that to myself. So I could avoid a lot of anxiety if I chose to when I lived in DC. In New York City, that's not as possible. We are a lot more surrounded with people. Buildings are really close. You're hearing outside street noises all the time if you're living, especially in like Manhattan, Brooklyn. And with that comes that you are just more stressed by living in New York City is something that I've realized. Other part about the stress is that when I lived in DC, I lived a little bit outside of it, and coming home always felt really good because I was a little bit removed and I had a bigger apartment, I had more amenities. So when I was home, I really had some space to be able to relax, and I had a nicer apartment and a bigger kitchen. I could cook for myself. So there was a lot of niceties that I could take advantage to calm myself, to take care of myself. You had all these other things that could help you feel better at home. In New York City, your homes are most likely going to be smaller, older, and there might be some more issues with it. It took me a lot more time and a lot more effort of decorating to feel more at home in New York City and feel good about living where I live. And you might start to think that New York City is just bad for everyone's mental health. But before I end this video, I want to mention one other thing that was hurting my mental health in general was that I did not feel belonging. I did not have a lot of close friends I could rely on, and I did not see a lot of people. And this was a big problem for me in DC. I had lovely, amazing friends, but I only got together with them rarely, and I wasn't able to reach to them quickly. So I grew up in a family where we saw a lot of people, and community was very important for me, and I rely on people and I want to help people when I can. So coming to New York City, I felt like I belonged to multiple communities and that I had amazing friends, saw each other whenever possible, and I felt a lot more belonging than I had before. When I consider both cities for myself, I've been really enjoying living in New York City. I'm making such amazing friends. I feel a lot of belonging. I feel this excitement that's giving me a lot more energy. So yes, it's not easy. It is a lot harder to do some simple tasks like laundry and grocery shopping. But if you are searching for more connection in your life, I do think New York City definitely provides that to an amazing extent. You definitely will meet people in New York City that you probably won't any other place. 2 years ago, I was at a spot where we were looking to move to New York City, but I was enjoying my life in DC and I didn't know how things would turn out, so I came in blindly. But I hope that if you're looking to move to one or the other, or if you live in one and you're moving to the other one, that this video will provide some information and I hope some comfort too. Thanks for watching.